hearty, comforting Indonesian chicken soup that's loaded with flavorful spices and herbs. Here's my version of soto ayam. Hi everyone, it's Cher here at School of Wok. Welcome back to another episode of Flavor Fridays. Today, soto ayam. So to start off, we're going to chop up some of the spice paste ingredients. So here we've got some garlic, shallots, ginger, turmeric, lemongrass stalks, and also some galangal and also some candlenuts. Not doing anything with the candlenuts, but simply just keeping them whole because they will get crushed up in the mortar anyway. So in we go with half of the ingredients in the mortar, just half only because it's a lot easier to get them a little bit finer before adding in the next half of the paste. So once that paste is made up in your mortar, you could obviously do this in a blender or a food processor as well. I just kind of prefer doing it in a mortar because it just allows you to kind of really pound out and crush down all of the cell walls and all of those wonderful aromas and essential oils, and all of those ingredients will just come out, and the ingredients will also have a really good chance of kind of mingling and mixing in the mortar. Whereas with a blender, you're only just getting a blade cutting through all of those ingredients, so not as much flavor out of your ingredients as much as you could potentially get them from if you did them in the mortar. So all of that to say, mortar is better, okay? Next up, we are going to joint the chicken into, well, I would say sort of around 6 to 8 pieces. We'll see how we go. Okay, so Operation Chook time, all right? So my chook here, it's sort of a medium chicken. You could obviously use something like a poussin, which is like a baby chicken. First off, the important thing is actually to get rid of the wishbone from the neck area. So I'm just gonna go in there and just make a couple of cuts, just so that I can access the wishbone. So that's one half of the wishbone out of the way, and then the other half. Now, next thing, I'm just gonna go in here and make a couple of cuts down the side of the skin, which joins the breast and the legs. Just gonna work around the legs now. Turn the chicken on its side, and we're just going to go around the oyster. So that's the oyster here, that little bulge that you've got here. And we want to actually keep the oyster on the leg because the oyster's got lots of flavor. It's pretty much a chef's treat, actually, which is why sometimes you don't see them served to you in the restaurant on your plate, because chef's been munching on them. So that's the oyster right there. That's what we want. And you basically simply come down to where the hip bone is, and we're just going to pull the leg away, cut through the joint. And there we have already just one leg. Okay, we'll trim that up later in a bit. Now work on the other leg now. Again, just working around the oyster with just the tip of my knife, cutting through the joint. That's the other leg right there. I'll turn the chicken over, and we're just going to now prep up the breast fillets now. So cutting down the length on the front here, where we have the keel bone. And I'm just going to swipe down with my knife, almost using my knife like a scalpel. I'm just going to do long swipes just to release the breast fillets from the actual carcass of the chicken. And once you get to where you've got some very jointy bits here, try and find the gap between the carcass and the actual chicken wings, and you should be able to go through without having to hack away. So now we have here the actual chicken breast fillet along with the wing attached, and we can obviously trim that up later. And then you simply do the same on the other side again. Now obviously with the carcass, we're not going to throw that away. That is going into our stock as well. We are making a bone broth stock, but what you want to do first before you actually get the carcass into the water, just want to make sure you trim up any of these, the bottom bit, which is the parson's nose. That goes off, that goes away. The parson's nose can add a little bit of bitterness to your stock or your broth, so we want to just kind of leave that out. And then from here, we're just going to pretty much just cut the chicken into sort of chunky pieces. So now the carcass can just go into a pot of simmering water. Now, to trim up all of our chicken, we simply want to separate the breast fillets from the wings, so just like so. And now they can also go into the stock pot. Obviously, don't forget the legs as well. We can actually trim up the legs or actually part them into two, so thigh and drumstick. So that's my thigh and that's the drumstick. Just aim for that fat line that's kind of running between the two, and then simply go through with your knife, and it should go through with no resistance whatsoever. If you find that there is resistance, then you're probably hitting bone and not in the right place, so just try again. Thighs and drumsticks can also go into the broth now, so essentially the whole chicken is in the broth, and we're just going to let that simmer for about 35 to 40 minutes, depending on how big your chicken is. And that should just basically happily simmer away, give out lots of flavor. We also have to watch the stock and make sure that you kind of skim it every now and then so that any of the bits of scum and impurities that float up to the surface, that gets removed as well, so it doesn't boil back into the stock and give a bitterness to your stock. So whilst our chicken is just simmering away, I'm just going to prep the garnish. This is completely optional for your dish. So here I've got some dried mung bean noodles and also got some hot oil in this wok that's just ready for some deep frying. And just be really, really careful when you do this. Like I said, it's optional, but when you get the mung bean noodles in, they simply puff up almost like rice puffs. So here we go. How quick was that? So after that's done, you simply get that out straight onto a pan or plate with some kitchen paper just to kind of dry off. And that's your mung bean crispies, super crunchy. Right, so let's get our wok in a nice hot sort of state. You can also use a deep saucepan. I'm just going to get some coconut oil in there. Heat that up. First of all, we're just going to fry off some of our dry spices. So that will be the cinnamon sticks, some salaam leaves, as well as a couple of star anise, a couple of cardamom pods, a couple of cloves. It's all a couple of everything today. As well as some kaffir lime leaves, they can go in. Just give it a little bit of a fry. So be really careful, don't have your heat too high, otherwise your spices might burn. The next thing that will be going in, your rempah or your spice paste. We're also going to add in about a tablespoon of ground coriander for a bit of freshness. Stir that through. And now, as usual, with a rempah or a spice paste, you want to really kind of cook it up for a good few minutes, and that's what we're going to do before we add in the broth. So after about 5 minutes of frying, the paste is definitely darkened in color, so I can start to go in now with my soup broth. So that's the chicken broth. Just a couple of ladles in first. So whilst the broth is simmering away, it does take a few minutes. I'm just going to now shred up my chicken thighs and my chicken legs and all the chicken meat, basically, into long, thin strips, like so. So the broth has had a few minutes to simmer away. I'm just going to do a really quick taste. Yes, nice. A little bit of salt in there just coming through. I'm just going to get a little bit more palm sugar in there. So that's the gula melaka. Just give that a really good stir. And then that is all done. Always remember to taste your food as you go. And now time to assemble everything together. So first off, got some fresh egg noodles. You can also use dried egg noodles that you then boil up. For this, I'm making a super big bowl. I just realized this is probably enough for like 2 people or one of me. Some of that rice vermicelli that I cooked off earlier. So literally just about 5-6 minutes in boiling water until everything is cooked. Obviously taste the noodles and then drain them, and then they'll be absolutely fine to use. My cabbage that I just finely shredded as well, so that can just go onto the sides here. It is actually a super healthy dish. I mean, this is where, you know, just every time I cook this, I just kind of get reminded of school canteen. Yes, school canteen. One of the vendors, probably one of the makciks, would be making soto ayam along with bergedil and a lot of different other Malay dishes. So cabbage, got some tomatoes as well. Those can go in. So you're looking for a nice combi of colors as well as flavors. Some bean sprouts that I just kind of washed and picked through. Of course, can't forget the chicken. So nice little heap of the chicken that can either go on the side or in the middle. Ooh, this is building up to be quite a big bowl here. Then now I've got also a hard-boiled egg, or rather a boiled egg. I think it's slightly soft in the middle. I'm just going to very carefully cut through. Ooh, look at that. Super jiggly and super soft in the middle. So I'm just going to pop that here. So it's starting to really come together. And now then finally we also have some spring onions that can go on top along with some lime wedges. I'm just going to pop the lime just to the side here, and then spring onions maybe just all around. And last but not least, we've got the crispy Mung thread noodles. And of course, can't forget the most important bit, just to finish off, you've got to get also your soup in there. So, let's give it a taste. This is like comfort food for me. It's got that lovely spiced soup, broth thingy going. Oh, this is childhood memories. Make this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the recipe. Leave us a comment down below as to what sort of food you have in your school canteen. Till next time, take care. Bye bye.